Welcome to the final WMN Live of 2024. As we close out an incredible year, I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to the amazing AIME team for making 2024 such an impactful and inspiring year. Thank you to all of our incredible guest speakers for your informative and transformative teachings that elevated all of us. Today, we are continuing our review of the 2024 WMN Summit topics. We are diving into track number 3, how to scale your business as an originator. This session was thoughtfully crafted by Karin Oxner and Gabby Waratala. And I'm thrilled to share that Gabby is here with us today to break down a few key insights from this topic. And here's the exciting news. The playbook will be shared, a practical, actionable resource to help you scale and succeed in your business. Now, let's kick things off with the incredible Gabby Waratala. She is the Director of Sales at Nextdoor Lending and a proud member of the WMN Committee. Her expertise and passion for empowering others makes her the perfect person to lead this discussion. So get ready to take notes and be inspired, and let's make this session one to remember. Welcome, Gabby.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Laura. I always feel so special when you bring me on. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. I'm so excited to be able to go through track 3 that Karin and I put together for you guys. We presented some of this at the WMN Summit at Fuse this year in New Orleans. Unfortunately, Karin couldn't be here with us today, so I'm going to be filling in and going through some of the hot topics to cover, along with a few examples. I'm really excited and passionate to share this with you all because these are things that I feel like I struggled with as far as scaling my business as a loan officer and things and adjustments that I had to make as a leader who still produces and still has clients as well. So I'm really excited. I know we have our track 3 that we're sharing with you guys, and this will pop up on the screen here in a second. Track 3, you'll see, is several pages long. So as we scroll through it, there's quite a few different topics that we're covering as far as lead generation mastery, enhancing efficiency, building a team, and enhancing your client experience. Now, if I went through this entire track and program with you, obviously this might take a good hour or two. So we're going to try to narrow it down. And I picked the 2 exercises that are most impactful to me and that I feel like my team benefits with as well. So the first one is that time audit and efficiency mapping. This is the first one that we'll cover today. And this exercise really just helps you hone in on where you're spending time during your day, because oftentimes there might be things that you have to do, or maybe that you're spinning your wheels on and you don't realize that so much of your day is being dedicated to doing these things. Some of them are non-negotiable. Some of them are important. But even beyond that, what I found is some of these items can be handed off, either delegated to somebody else, paying somebody else to do, but that's a scary topic to approach, especially if you're trying to scale your business. Saying, hey, I'm going to dedicate X amount of dollars of my monthly income to allocate to somebody else to do a task that I already do, that sometimes is a tough pill to swallow until you sit down and break it out just like this. So we'll go through this exercise in a few moments here, but to run through just the rest of the track that we'll cover too, so you guys can get an idea. There's a couple other exercises in here. So we've provided the page. The other one that I'm really passionate about is designing your own workflow. So basically this comes down to really also enhancing your client experience, because you might have something that you do really well. And you might do it 50% of the time or 75% of the time, or just depending on how the client needs it. But the reality is, when you want to get to a place where you're expanding your business and you're writing 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 loans a month, if you don't have some of these resources or a go-to flow in place, you're never going to be able to take it to that next step because you're spending so much time manually doing things. So that's another exercise that we'll go through, and I'll provide examples examples, and we'll show a short preview here if you scroll down a bit. So basically going through every single step, big or small, even from initial client contact to once they find the home. Key actions that you want to narrow down that you're doing, and materials and resources that you're providing to your client, and why this is crucial. So those are the two big ones that I'm going to touch on today. So first, we'll start with the exercise of the time management. That's the big one. So for this exercise, the table's very, very user-friendly. As you can see, there's only 4 columns. It's nothing crazy. So what you'll do is you want to do this, at least dedicate 1 full day to doing it. So you're going to write down every single task that you do, big or small. You'll see on my example, the first one is literally shower, hair, and makeup, right? If you can put brushing your teeth on there. And I promise there's a method to the madness. It's to show that your time isn't being wasted. And we'll get there. Some of these things are non-negotiables that you're not going to be able to pay somebody to do. So we got to figure it out together, right? Next is the duration. So how long you're doing it for, how many minutes. Next, if you would pay somebody to complete this task, if it's something that even if you don't know the dollar amount quite yet, are you willing to put a monetary value on it? And then the next is trying to figure out that amount. And I'll dive into that with you guys, because one of the biggest things that the first time I did this exercise that I figured out when I was going through is that I didn't know how much even if I was willing to pay somebody some amount of money to do these actions, I had no idea what I should even be paying them. What should I be allocating? What's an appropriate amount? What do people ask for and want to be paid for doing some of these items? I didn't even know, right? That just showed me I hadn't even considered this aspect of handing off and the monetization, because I didn't know anything about this side of being able to scale my business until I sat down and looked at it. So my example, I gave it to you just so you could see, hey, no action is too big or too small, right? There's several to start my day, such as getting ready, getting my work day started, getting the kid and family ready and off to school and driving into work, that it's not negotiable. There's not a single person on the planet that's likely going to do most of that for us, and then obviously, yes, you have a spouse, but ultimately you still have to brush your own teeth in the morning, right? You still have to shower and get ready to be presentable for work. There are some things that you're not going to be able to compromise on, right? But you can't just carve them out of your day and pretend that they don't exist. So it was helpful in this exercise because it's getting you to see, hey, it's giving yourself some grace. These are things that I'm not going to be able to get around. Right? You'll notice where I started to monetize, for example, is once I got to work. A couple of things, my schedule is a bit mixed just with running a team and producing. So my day can be quite staggered between, client items thrown in or items that I need to do with the team. So for example, pulling reports and checking my in-process pipeline and cleaning that up so I know I got a head start on it for the day. These are things where, yes, I as a control freak would love to always do them myself. But if I thought about how I had to scale my business, is this something someone else could do for me? Right? Absolutely, it is. And this is where it came down to, as I said a few moments ago, with the monetary amount. I didn't even know where to start. Is it an hourly rate? Is it a monthly rate? What am I even willing to give up? So even if I didn't have the answer as I was doing this exercise, it at least provoked the thoughts of, okay, this is something you need to get a handle on, because you never even considered what this would cost or how this works into the revenue from each loan, right? So there were other items on here outside of maybe some client facing or processing that I knew, hey, as I went through them, technically I could maybe have somebody else do it, but I'm not willing to negotiate because it's such a big part of my client experience and process. And everyone else is going to have a different piece for that. So for me, this particular day, I was walking a client through their final closing disclosure and their final numbers. As all the loan officers on this call know, hey, that's probably going to look a little bit different than the loan estimate. just because of things like prepaid taxes owed back to the seller, right? Different credits allocated in process, the title company finally filling in their billing piece, right? I like to go through that part with my client because they're so close to closing and they're nervous. They will have questions. It's a big piece to me to be there and be that face at the end. And because nobody else knows how to answer these questions better than me, it's not a piece I was willing to negotiate on. Right? Another piece that I found that I was not willing to negotiate on, some of the coaching items, right? With my team. For example, one-on-ones. There is nobody else. I'm their leader. Theoretically, yes, I can hand it off to somebody else, or I can try to make it impactful. But the whole point of me being their leader is that I'm there to lead them. I'm there to provide that support and that coaching. So if I'm not doing that, I'm not being an effective leader. That's not something I'm willing to compromise on, even though maybe I could outsource that, or I could find somebody else to help with it. There's certain things that I knew I want to do. So with this, the biggest pieces that I want you guys to keep in mind, and why I really firmly believe this is such an impactful exercise, is one, it's free. There is no coaching class for this. You were given it. It is a simple table. You can only do it for one of your day. These are all things that you're already doing. All I'm asking you to do is take account of them, right? It's a very, very doable task. It's just your run-of-the-mill day with a little bit of extra thought put in. That's number one, right? There's just no excuse behind not to do an activity this easy. The second piece is the portion I kept harping over with the impactfulness and what thoughts that it's going to provoke. Because there's some of these things, like social media was another one. I was like, I can't imagine paying. My husband would ask me all the time. I couldn't imagine paying. I'm like, who am I going to give my accounts to? Why would I pay somebody to do my social media? Like, it's social media. I'll just do it. It's fine. I'll figure it out. But as many of us know, what happens with social media? Okay, we get busy into our day. It gets pushed to the back burner because clients are more important. Our team is more important. Fires are more important. Social media falls by the wayside. Oh, I'll catch up with engagement tomorrow. Oh, I'll do the post tomorrow. So it was, okay, if this is affordable, maybe this is something I do need to outsource because it's taking time away from my business if I decide to allocate more time to it. But if I don't do it, it's going to be missing out on that exposure piece. It's still a very important part of our business. So it gets you through a lot of these questions where you might have hard stops in your minds in these preconceived notions of what you're willing to do in your business. But when you take an itemized account like this, you realize how much you're doing and where, if you want to scale, something has to give. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you need to sleep at least 4 of them. Right? So there's only so much you can do. So as much as you can either outsource, as much as you can make scalable, revamp the process, it really forces you to take a good hard look at your business and where you can be better. And especially as growing LOs, this is something where you're new, maybe you're only writing 1 or 2 loans a month and you're like, I don't really need this yet. I need more stuff to do. I get that. But the problem is that I promise you, there will come a day where you start to explode. You will have those great relationships. You're going to find leads. You're going to be getting referrals. You're going to be crushing it. And then you're going to look and say, all of a sudden, just say, I have no time. What happened? You're lacking a process. You're missing things because there's too much. So it's good to just get in front of it as you progress through your business, because it will keep you in front of things to make sure that you continually are working on a scalability piece, not just a reactive piece. So I absolutely love this exercise. And I will not take credit for it. This is 100% Karin came to me with this. She had done it years ago. And immediately, as soon as the words came out of her mouth, I was like, done, has to be on the track. I loved it. I did it literally that next day. It was phenomenal. So this is Karin's brainchild, but I love it. And I can't get enough of it and can't stress the importance of it. So the next piece that I want to cover with you guys is the second exercise I went over in the track. So really customizing your process to enhance that client experience. Now on track 3, I provided you guys with a table. So on that original document, I tried to parcel it out in this table to where you should be thinking about either building out resources, a script, action items, because the reality is in our business, there's more than just the, hey, pre-approval, offer accepted, underwriting, closing, and you're done. There's a lot more than that to build out a positive client experience. And I'll have, if Tommy can bring that up in the background for us, the example of that table from track 3. I believe it's a little bit further down on page. There it is. Perfect. Designing your workflow. So you'll see that I added here initial client contact. So even from the second that you get that initial referral, right? Having something built out. Are you thanking if an agent sent it to you, if it was a referral? Are you thanking the person that sent you over that lead? Do you have a canned, nice, warm introduction? Is it a text first? Is it a call? There should be some type of cadence to what you're doing. Same thing with the application. As you scale, right? Ideally, yes, it'd be wonderful to take every single application over the phone and build that relationship. But the reality is if you're doing 50 loans a month, that's not always the case. A lot of us know, hey, in purchase, you'll have an initial call. Maybe you'll send out an application link and then do a follow-up. So finding, hey, what is doable? And maybe if you are new and you only have a couple opportunities a month, great. Use every single second of that call. Maybe your process is, hey, I do take every application call over the phone and I'm spending half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour on the phone because that's the best way for you to scale your business with the volume you currently have. Right? So same thing. Are you doing home search check-ins? Are you sending them listings, right? Once they're under contract, do you have a congratulations text? Do you have a congratulations video? Are you reaching out to the agent about how excited you are? Do you have a process for calling the listing agent as well as the buyer's agent? Right? So these are all things that you want to start thinking about. And so that's why I broke out more steps in here rather than just pre-approval, accepted, disclosures, closing, right? I want it to be more thought-provoking than that because if you're going to scale, you have to start thinking about the details. And the earlier that you start thinking about them and building out your process, the easier it then becomes when you do start to get that rolling business because you're not going to make the mistake that I made where I tried to build all this out when I already had the business and now it's just chaos and busyness and, 2 a.m. days. So that's why it's never too early to start. Even if you're only doing a couple loans a month or 0 loans a month, this is the perfect opportunity to take because you have the time to build this out to prep for your future. And another reason that I thought that this was great to bring up is the time of year. It's December. So many people say, hey, I'm slow this time of year, right? And while I always tell my team, hey, that's no excuse. We're going to find opportunities come heck or high water. However, for those who will take, hey, it's just my slower season, great. If this is your slower season and it's not client facing, then it needs to be you facing. It needs to be working on yourself in your own business. So what better time to address something like this in your process and build it out than your slower time right before the new year where you can start to commit and implement these items. So I did provide a couple of examples for you guys just because these are things that I thought was important to narrow down some of my calls as far as, hey, what are things that I can give to the client that's going to make a phone call a little bit either more warm or more emotionally tied or field some of the questions that I know I'm already going to get, but at least take that call that maybe was an hour of going through a loan estimate with that tricky client to maybe, hey, now we're only addressing a couple minutes and it's a 5 or 10 minute call. Right? So resources like this. So the first one I'm going to have our team pull up here is the home buyer timeline. So this is something like this is a great resource to be able to provide your client on that initial call, right? You're going to tell them and you're going to go through with them, hey, you're a first-time home buyer. There's a lot involved in home ownership. You might already be going through that call. But remember, if they're a first-time home buyer, that's a whirlwind. They're going to retain maybe 5 to 10% of what you're saying. And I know all of you have been in that situation, right? You've talked with a client, it's over the same topic 10 different times because it's a lot for them to retain, just like it was a lot for us to retain when we were first learning in the industry, right? They're human. So providing something like this, one, it's just visually more exciting than a phone call telling them their timeline. But also it gets them excited, right? It's something for them to anchor themselves to. Hey, where am I? Am I hitting my checkpoints? Especially because once they get past the pre-approval and house hunting, they're like, okay, cool. They might just think, oh, well, I'm just going to close. No, hey, you're going to need me every step of the way. And these are some things to prepare for. I got your back. This is where I'm going to help. This is where your agent is going to help. And this is what to expect at each step. So providing something like this, it just anchors them and gives them something to go back to, especially those first-time home buyers where, they might get their home inspection, right? All of you, I'm sure. Hey, I just had a home inspection. I don't need an appraisal. I just got my home inspected. It's good. Right? They don't know the difference. It's on us to explain that. So just giving them these tangible checkpoints. This is an example of one. Another one, and this is by far my favorite. It took me forever to finally sit down and commit to building this, as silly as it sounds, but it will save you goo gobs of time if you just commit the few hours to doing it. You could do it for loan estimates, you can do it for closing disclosures, you can do it for anything. But the example that I pulled out was for loan estimates. So a client gets a loan estimate and going through line by line. The reality is, hey, some clients don't care. You sold the loan well. They understand, they've been conditioned well enough. They're good. They're cool. As long as they understand a couple numbers, they're good with it. However, not every client is like that. Some clients want every single line itemized to them. And I've had this client. That's why I took the time to make this, because I got off 1 hour and a half call and I told myself, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. So building something like this where you are outlining every single line item, because again, no, some of them might not read this, but at least if they get their loan estimate in hand and they got that gigantic initial disclosure package, they have something that goes, oh, I know what these mean. Right? Oh, okay. I have a question. Let me see if this line explains it. So this first one, it just breaks down the top of the loan estimate. The second page goes through a little bit more of the items on the disclosures. So, right, like loan amount, interest rate, breaking that down. Where I find it's very, very valuable is when you get to that page 2 of the loan estimate and you're going through the itemized breakdowns of the lines. So we'll keep going. It's a little bit further. I believe it's page 3. There it is. Page 4 or 5. Bear with me. Page 4. 5. Okay. So starting on my sheet here, this is where I start to break down the boxes for my client, right? This is the first one. Obviously, everyone knows box A. This is the one that's us. And this can be a little bit different for everybody. Honestly, since this loan estimate went out, this has been revamped as far as how our team does it internally too, right? Processing fees can change, where those are shown all the time. But it breaks down, hey, this is what points are. If you have them, don't panic. It's optional. It was to buy down your rate. You're choosing it, right? So if they see it, you've already had that conversation, but it anchors them back to it because they hear so much about points on Google from their friends, don't pay points, whatever it is. It anchors them back to something. They might ask, what is an underwriting fee? I don't understand. Who's charging that? It anchors them to the explanation. Next, box B, services that they cannot shop for, right? Hey, these are third parties that I'm going to order, but you're not going to be able to choose them. These are what they're for. Explaining. C, hey, box C, services that you can shop for. You and your agent are likely going to choose this together. They're going to provide recommendations. These are what these mean. So I won't bore you guys with going through the entire estimate. I can provide this example to you if you guys would like, just so you have a resource to build off of. I don't mind steal my explanations. You're good. They're pretty run of the mill with a couple enhancements thrown in, but it gives them something to anchor themselves to, because I know every single person on this call has had that client. I can confidently say that at some point you've had a client that has wanted to go line by line. And especially with those prepaids, it helps a ton. Further down in this, I go through explaining prepaids to them and why they have to pay 12 months of homeowners insurance up front. It answers all those questions that you're going to get. So having something built out like this, although every client might not read it, it's going to save you those long phone calls. And let's be real, if you provided something this valuable to a client, that like it's a resource to them, they're going to value their experience more, not that it was just passed off, hey, go sign this, text me if you have any questions. No, it was nice that their loan officer put more thought into it, into explaining it, and then made themselves available. So now they know, hey, I have my documents, I have this resource, and I know I could go back to my awesome loan officer if I still have questions. It gives them a lot more confidence in this process. So I would encourage people to do this not only for loan estimates, but also closing disclosures, just because obviously the final closing disclosure will compare and contrast your initial costs. And it gives you that opportunity to break down that last page where title adds the prorated taxes owed back to the seller in. So it gives you that opportunity to address those. That's a big piece. And those are probably the most common questions, we get. So yes, it is a time investment to sit down and do these and design them and build out the explanations. I get it. But once you do it once, you have it for life, right? And it's a resource that your client can continue to grow with. So again, this is the other one that I put in as such a important piece as far as scalability, because the reality is when you have that many loans, it just doesn't become feasible to walk through 100 loan estimates, 100 closing disclosures while still generating new business. Something has to give somewhere. So the more educational pieces you give your clients, the more confidence you instill in them, the more time it frees up for you. And ultimately, when you get to this high of a level, this is what it's about. It's all about efficiency. It's all about time efficiency. You can be the best loan officer in the world and the best salesperson and know all of the guidelines. But if you don't have a way to scale, and you don't have a way to be efficient with your time, you're always going to hit a ceiling. Always. So that next level, in whether it's your own business, building your business, no matter what it is always going to be that scalability piece, because skill and practice will only get you so far. When you have, again, I keep using hundreds examples, but even if you're a company owner or you run a team, thousands of leads and thousands of loans in the door, you have to get to that next space. So I really hope that these two exercises will get you guys to start thinking about those items. There's definitely more in the packet for track 3. We harped on a couple other items and a couple other good topics with some tips, but these are the two exercises that even myself, I as a loan officer and then transitioned to a leader, found the most impactful and translatable across the board. It's never too early or too soon to start thinking about these things, because either, like we were talking about earlier, you're either right at the beginning where you have all the time to build this out because you don't maybe have all those opportunities in that business yet, or you're somebody where you're crushing it, which means you're about to tap out at that ceiling. So no matter what, it's something that you need to address. It's the elephant in the room that you got to get to.
Fabulous. And please forgive my voice. Sorry, guys. Gabby, absolutely incredible. A couple of questions. One, after you did the time exercise, did you make changes for yourself?
I did.
Okay, so I'd love to hear that.
Yes. So originally when I did it, because I only showed you guys like half of a day just for time's sake, because obviously it can get a little bit wordy, right? So I only showed you guys half a day, but I actually did this over the span of 3 days, because my days really, they do look different, right? It's not the same every single day. I'm dealing with fires from other LOs. If you don't have closings, but maybe you have a bunch of app intakes, your day is going to look different. So the biggest realization that came out of it for me was I was somebody who I refused. I was like, I'm not paying somebody to do social media. I'm not going to pay for content. I'm not going to pay for these AI apps or for a photographer or any of these things. And it was a sit down, come to Jesus moment. And I even had it with my husband. I was like, I was wrong. I was wrong. I said, I'm not dedicating any time to this because I deem it as not important compared to front end business or getting a loan closed. And if I do that, I'm going to lose all my front end business. I'm going to lose all of my front end exposure. What am I doing?
Yeah, how are you going to
I'm going to be that I'm going to be that person where you look at it and my last post is from 3 years ago. Like I can't be that person. Right. So it was a really come down. It was like, okay, so how are we going to structure this? Because it was just prior to Fuse. It was like, okay, so how are we going to structure this? How are you going to budget it and build it into your business for the next year? What changes are you going to be willing to make, or engagement, right? And so that was one big piece where I had to sit down. Or even the LOA piece. So for me, it was thinking about more so, okay, is it time to start utilizing an LOA? Right. Mm-hmm. We have wonderful processors here at our company, and I really do. I have the best team. So it's not that, but it's like, okay, well, can I get to that? Can I get to that next level? Can I get to these higher double digits if maybe I have an extra, if I have an extra hand in the cookie jar? So it's been something where immediately, even John had asked me like, hey, do you feel like you'll need one? Immediately, knee-jerk reaction. Absolutely not. I can do this. I got it. Absolutely not. And then after doing this, it was like, oh gosh, I need to put more emphasis on, okay, what would be financially feasible for this? Per loan, can I make it work? And what is my cap? When I then get to, and especially in the busy season again, when I get to this, okay, what's my threshold? If I have to just let the reins, I have to let the reins go, and I have to acknowledge that there's going to be more help there. So it was very helpful.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Shout out to Karen Oxner for that one.
Yay!
She was a phenomenal exercise.
It's funny, when I was looking at your home buyer timeline, I literally, the thing that popped in my head is what to expect when you're expecting. Like when you go to a pregnancy. But Gabby, it's brilliant because just like if you're a new parent, if you're a new homeowner and you're going through that experience, you have no idea what to expect. Even if you go online and you ask your friends and everything else, it's unique to them. And having this timeline with little descriptions and kind of taking them through the process, it's not only informative, it's exciting. It kind of gives them, we made it from step 5 to step 6, and we made it from 6 to 7, and it's kind of going through this progression. So I think it's brilliant. And I encourage everyone to kind of make that your own, have fun with it. Take something like that and don't make it so serious. Make it something that people can kind of follow along and have fun and embrace it. So great job with that.
Thank you.
Then, question in regards to the explanation. When you do the explanation for the LE and the CD, are you customizing that to them, or do you have a generic explanation?
Nope. So I have their generic explanation.
Okay.
That's what that form was pulled from a very, very old loan estimate from like 2023. If that gives you any indication of, it's been a hot second since I've had to redo that one. So I use a general form for them to anchor, but because they have their loan estimate right next to them, ideally, again, I'm not a tech savvy person. I'll just say that right now. I have the best team in the world to help me get there, and a couple new systems that we're going to be working out of, where ideally I want it to get to where if I can just take it, plug and chug it, and AI then chugs my explanations in there that I already have pre-written. Yeah. It's just replacing it with whatever their loan estimate was, and it'll coincide. That's the goal. I'm a couple months out from that. However, I've been told by people much more savvy than me in technology that it should be doable within our new systems we're working on. So that's my personal goal.
Yeah, and Gabby, you just brought that up about AI. Looking at that timeline in terms of where you're spending your time, even the whole thing about the cost of having someone else do it. Some of these tasks can now be done with AI. Yeah. So that's a whole nother thing of taking an assessment of resources. What are you doing and what can help you with that? Because it's not even just a human anymore, right?
Absolutely. So AI is one big thing that I'd say, honestly, my whole team has gotten very, very familiar with using, whether it be, as simple as ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure every single person on my team at this point uses ChatGPT, and they better. But for things even such as, hey, respond to this underwriting condition, or have a tactful email response to this underwriter. How to have this, tips on how to have this uncomfortable conversation, right? Ooh, just to help them navigate through it a little bit better. Like, they're using it in other unconventional ways rather than just like, what was RESPA's guide on, is this like, it's not that, right? We're using it more in practice, which has been very helpful. And then some of my team members, the girls, amazing, Avery and Joanna, they're all about the AI with the videos. And one of them has downloaded an app where it like learns their faces and their movements,
Wow.
so that you can just basically put in the video that you want it to be made, and it'll take your likeness and run with it, right?
That's awesome.
So our team is definitely great about using AI and taking those advancements and saying, okay, great, like how can we make our lives easier, right? Whether it be social media, or it's a little trickier obviously with sending direct client facing things just because of the sensitive information piece.
Yeah.
But definitely, to your point, using those other opportunities rather than a physical human and paying them to scale your business.
Which the biggest thing is to take the time to evaluate where your time is being spent, and then how you can maximize that, create that efficiency, and your workflow document. You're exactly right. So many times people think that, oh, I don't need that at this moment. But this is exactly when you need it, right? You need it now, because you're never going to be able to scale or grow unless you take the time to do that. Mm-hmm. Gabby, thank you so much for sharing all of your brilliance and everything that you have. And shout out to Karin and Gabby for putting together Track 3. Thank you for sharing all of that. For everyone out there, happy holidays. We truly appreciate all of you, and join us next month in the new year when Christine Beckwith and Ashley Miller wrap up this series in branding yourself and your company, which will be Track 4 of the WMN Summit Playbook. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Happy holidays.